"You're going to sleep with us," said the three giant women already living on the farm he bought. Marcus had dreamed of this moment for as long as he could remember. After years of saving, planning, and navigating the complex property laws of a distant colony planet, he finally had the deed in his hands. The farm was everything he had imagined: open land stretching under twin suns, fields ready for planting, and a quiet that promised solitude. It was supposed to be his place, a sanctuary away from the endless noise of the city and the pressures of his old life. He landed the small hovercraft on the dusty landing pad and stepped out, stretching his legs after the long flight. The air smelled fresh, with a faint scent of wild flowers carried by the gentle breeze. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Finally, he thought, he was free. That freedom, however, did not last long. From the edge of the property, three enormous figures emerged. Marcus blinked, certain his eyes were playing tricks on him. They were women, or at least they looked like women, but each stood nearly twice the height of an average human male. Their skin shimmered faintly, with a smooth, pale glow that reflected the sunlight. Their hair flowed in colors he had no names for, soft purples, blues, and silvers, and their eyes, large and curious, seemed to hold centuries of knowledge. One of them stepped forward, and the ground seemed to tremble slightly with each step. Marcus instinctively took a step back. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The woman smiled, and her voice was calm, almost musical. "You're going to sleep with us," she said. Marcus froze. The words echoed in his mind. Was this a joke? A threat? He couldn't tell. "Excuse me?" he managed to say. The woman tilted her head. "We live here," she said simply. "This is our farm. Now, you are here too." Marcus's mind raced. He had bought the farm legally. The papers were in order, the ownership registered with the colonial authorities. How could they just live here? "I bought this place," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. The second woman laughed softly, a sound like wind through crystal. "Bought it?" she repeated. "The land is yours on paper, human. But the farm, it is ours. You will learn this soon." Marcus felt a flush of frustration. He had prepared for negotiations, for legal disputes, for alien bureaucracy, but not for this. Not for three giants staring at him with calm curiosity. He tried to assert himself. "I need space. I need time to set up my equipment. I have plans, irrigation, drones, the greenhouse system." The third woman stepped closer, her eyes scanning the small hovercraft and the crate of supplies he had brought. "We know," she said. "We have seen your plans. But the farm works differently here. You must learn to live with us, not against us." Marcus shook his head, but deep down he realized she was right. The farm already had signs of their presence everywhere. The crops in the main field were healthy and strange, with colors he didn't recognize. Small machines, floating drones, and intricate irrigation tubes twisted across the land in patterns that suggested intelligence beyond what he had imagined. The soil had been turned, the fences repaired, and a small pond glimmered in the sunlight. All without his help. He swallowed hard. Maybe these women weren't hostile. Maybe they were just protective of what they had built. Trying to recover some authority, Marcus said, "I can help. I can improve things here. I know farming techniques humans use on Earth. Maybe we can combine our knowledge." The women exchanged glances. Marcus felt a shiver of anticipation. Were they amused? Skeptical? Curious? The first woman spoke again. "Perhaps," she said, "perhaps. But first, you must understand the rhythm of this farm. Sleep, food, work, rest. Everything is connected. We do not work against each other here. We work together." Marcus frowned. "Sleep, food, work, together?" The first woman nodded. "Yes. When we say you will sleep with us, we mean you will share the cycles of this farm. Not as master, not as intruder, but as participant. You will learn to be part of it, or you will fail." Marcus's chest tightened. He had expected hard work, challenges, and maybe even alien quirks. But this was something else entirely. These women did not treat him as a human guest or intruder. They treated him as an equal in potential, though clearly far weaker in execution. He looked at them, and something in his human mind flickered. He had faced challenges before. He had been underestimated countless times, but he had never been completely overpowered in knowledge, creativity, or endurance. This farm, these women, were a challenge unlike any he had met. And somewhere deep in his chest, a spark of excitement lit. "I'll try," he said finally. "I don't know your ways yet, but I will learn. I want to be part of this farm. Please, show me how." The three women smiled, and the tension in the air seemed to shift. They moved around him gracefully, pointing to the fields, the drones, and the irrigation systems. The second woman crouched near a plant with shimmering leaves and showed him how the water tubes twisted beneath the soil, distributing nutrients evenly to every root. Marcus leaned in, fascinated. "These crops, they're not earth plants," he said. "They grow on this planet, yes, but you've enhanced them somehow?" The third woman nodded. "We have, but not alone. The land itself guides us. You will learn, human. You must listen." The day passed in a whirlwind of strange and beautiful discoveries. Marcus followed the women from field to greenhouse, learning their methods, taking notes, and asking questions. He was careful, nervous, and sometimes clumsy. He spilled water, tripped over irrigation tubes, and misread the signals of the drones. But each time, one of the women corrected him gently, showing him the proper way without harsh words or criticism. As the suns began to set, painting the sky with shades of violet and gold, Marcus finally paused. Sweat dripped down his face, and his muscles ached in ways they hadn't in years, but there was a smile on his lips. He looked at the three women, standing tall and serene among the fields they had nurtured, and felt something unexpected: respect, awe, and a flicker of determination. Tomorrow, he knew, the work would continue. There would be more tests, more challenges, and more moments where he would feel utterly inadequate. But for the first time, he also knew something else. Humans had a way of surprising, of finding solutions in chaos, of persisting when logic suggested failure. Marcus straightened his shoulders and looked at the horizon. The farm was vast, the work endless, and the women intimidating beyond belief. Yet beneath that intimidation was opportunity, an opportunity to prove that humans, even tiny and fragile compared to giants, could belong in this world, could thrive, could make a difference. One of the women approached him and handed him a small tool, a simple-looking device that seemed useless at first. "Use this wisely," she said. "It will teach you much." Marcus took it, feeling the weight not just of the tool, but of the unspoken challenge it represented. Sleep, food, work, and rest. The rhythm of the farm awaited him, and whether he failed or succeeded, he knew this was only the beginning. As night fell and the twin moons rose above the horizon, Marcus sat on the small porch of his hovercraft, looking out at the glowing fields. Somewhere in the distance, the gentle hum of the drones echoed, the soft rustle of the crops whispered, and the towering figures of the women moved gracefully under the moonlight. He breathed deeply, feeling both fear and exhilaration. Tomorrow, he would begin to truly understand what it meant to live on this farm, with them, in this strange and beautiful world. And maybe, just maybe, he would find a way not only to survive, but to earn a place among them. The farm was alive, and it had already begun to teach him its first lesson. Humans were small, yes, but small things often carried sparks that giants could not see coming. The next morning, Marcus woke to the sound of soft humming. He sat up in the small cabin he had set up on the edge of the farm and rubbed his eyes. The twin suns were just rising, bathing the land in golden light. The farm looked different in the morning, more alive, more intentional. Every plant, every drone, every irrigation tube seemed to move in a quiet rhythm he had not noticed the day before. Marcus stepped outside, still adjusting to the height of the three women. They were already moving through the fields, their long strides smooth and precise. One of them, tall with silver blue hair that glowed faintly in the sunlight, turned to him and smiled. "Good morning, human," she said. "Today, you will learn to work with the land, not against it." Marcus nodded. "I'm ready," he said, though a small part of him still felt out of place. The women led him to a new section of the farm he had not yet explored. The soil was rich and dark, dotted with strange plants that shimmered faintly, as if they were breathing. Hovering drones hovered over the crops, adjusting their height and position with mechanical precision. "You will water these plants," the first woman said, "but not like humans water. You must follow the rhythm." Marcus frowned. "The rhythm?" The second woman bent down and touched one of the plants. Its leaves shivered at her touch. "The plants tell us what they need," she said. "They do not grow on strict schedules. They do not follow clocks. You must listen, observe, respond." Marcus took a deep breath and tried. He bent over the plants, touching the leaves gently, noticing the subtle movement in the stems. He tilted his head, trying to feel the rhythm, as if the farm itself was alive and breathing beneath his hands. Hours passed. Marcus spilled water, misread the drone signals, and accidentally tripped over a small network of nutrient tubes. The women corrected him with patience. One would guide his hands, another would adjust the irrigation, and the third would hover nearby, giving quiet instructions. Marcus felt frustrated. On Earth, farming had been simple: plant, water, wait, harvest. Here, every decision required attention, observation, and timing he did not yet understand. But he refused to give up. Each mistake became a small lesson, each correction a chance to improve. By midday, the women decided to introduce him to another challenge. They led him to a part of the farm where small, luminescent creatures moved through the soil. At first, Marcus thought they were insects, but as he watched, he realized they were intelligent life forms. The creatures adjusted the soil, helped pollinate the plants, and communicated through gentle vibrations. "These are the caretakers," the first woman said. "They have always been part of this farm. You must learn to work with them, not against them." Marcus nodded, kneeling on the soft ground. He held out his hand slowly, not wanting to frighten the creatures. One of the creatures crawled onto his palm, tiny legs tickling his skin, and vibrated softly. Marcus felt a strange connection, as if it was testing him. He mimicked its movements, copying the vibrations with his fingers. Slowly, the creatures began to respond to him, shifting and moving in harmony with his hands. The women watched silently, their faces calm, but their eyes filled with interest. Marcus felt a small surge of pride. For the first time, he had learned something the farm allowed him to control, not by force, but by observation, patience, and adaptability. Lunch came in the form of strange fruits and nutrient-rich drinks the women prepared. Marcus hesitated at first, unfamiliar with the flavors and textures, but each bite left him energized. The women ate alongside him, explaining the nutritional value of each plant. Marcus realized that on this farm, even eating was a lesson in harmony and efficiency. After lunch, the women introduced a more complex task, repairing and reorganizing the drones. Marcus had assumed they were automatic, fully intelligent machines, but he quickly learned that the drones relied on a combination of programming, environmental signals, and human-like intuition. "Think, human," the second woman said. "The drones do not understand mistakes. They only respond to patterns. You must guide them with your mind, your hands, your decisions. Not like programming, but like life." Marcus studied the hovering drones. Each had a role. One watered the plants, another adjusted sunlight reflectors. A third collected samples. When he tried to organize them, they ignored him at first. He spoke softly, moving his hands in deliberate gestures. Slowly, the drones began to respond, following his rhythm. The women nodded, impressed. Marcus felt the satisfaction of small victory, but he knew the real challenge had only begun. As afternoon arrived, a sudden storm appeared on the horizon. Dark clouds rolled in fast, unusual for this part of the planet. The wind picked up, sending leaves and small tools flying. Marcus froze, unsure how to react. The women moved calmly, issuing quiet instructions to each other. Drones adjusted, plants were protected, but the speed and complexity of the situation overwhelmed Marcus. "This is your test, human," the first woman said. "See how you respond when chaos comes." Marcus took a deep breath. He felt fear, yes, but also determination. He remembered small tricks from Earth, how to divert water, secure fragile structures, and guide small creatures. He improvised, rerouting irrigation to prevent flooding, reinforcing fragile plant stems, and coordinating drones with gestures and voice. The storm raged, but slowly, Marcus's interventions worked. The damage was minimal. By the time the suns began to set again, the clouds dispersed, leaving the farm intact. The women approached him, their expressions calm but approving. "You have learned much today," said the third woman. "Not by following, but by thinking, by responding, by adapting. This is what humans can do." Marcus felt exhaustion in his bones, but also a thrill. He had faced a challenge that was entirely new, and he had succeeded, not perfectly, but enough. The women had not given him easy tasks, but they had given him the chance to prove himself. That night, as Marcus prepared for sleep, he reflected on the day. The farm was not just land, it was a living organism. The crops, the creatures, the drones, and the women were all part of a delicate balance, and humans, he realized, had a role to play too. Not through strength or size, but through ingenuity, persistence, and observation. He set a small notebook on his bedside table, planning to write down every lesson. Each failure, each success, each small observation might make the difference tomorrow. And he knew tomorrow would bring more challenges, strange weather, unusual plants, and new tasks from the women. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the farm settle around him. It was demanding, strange, and overwhelming. But it was alive, and for the first time in his life he felt that being alive meant more than simply existing. It meant understanding, adapting, and growing. Somewhere in the distance, the hum of the drones continued, blending with the soft rustle of plants and the faint shimmer of the luminescent creatures. The women stood nearby, their giant forms quiet under the moonlight. Marcus felt small, yes, but not powerless. He was beginning to understand the rhythm of this place, and the more he learned, the more he realized that humans, though small and often underestimated, had something unique, a spark of unpredictability. the ability to adapt, the stubbornness to persist. Tomorrow, the farm would test him again. But tonight, he allowed himself a small smile. He had survived the first real trial. He had not only endured, but had started to contribute. And in this strange alien world, that was something remarkable. Marcus drifted off to sleep, his mind full of plans, ideas, and a quiet determination. The farm had challenged him, but he was ready. For the first time, he felt he might not just belong here, he might thrive. The farm had begun to accept him, and he, in turn, was beginning to understand it. The next morning, Marcus woke to a strange silence. The usual hum of drones and the gentle rustle of the crops was missing. He sat up in the cabin, rubbing his eyes, and noticed the sky had turned a deep, unnatural gray. The three women were already outside, standing at the edge of the farm, their expressions unusually serious. One of them pointed toward the horizon. Marcus squinted and saw dark clouds swirling faster than any storm he had ever seen. Lightning crackled in strange, curved patterns, and the wind began to pick up, tugging at the plants and his small cabin. "The storm comes early today," said the first woman, her voice calm but urgent. "It is not natural. You must prepare." Marcus's heart sank. He had survived yesterday's challenges through observation and careful imitation, but this storm felt different. It was unpredictable, larger, and more dangerous. The women moved quickly, issuing commands to the drones and organizing the plants. "You will help," said the second woman. "Not just with your hands, but with your mind. Think, adapt." Marcus nodded. He felt a surge of determination. He had been learning, observing, and growing. Now it was time to act, to see if human creativity could make a difference. He ran toward the greenhouses first. The glass domes were delicate, but within them grew plants vital to the farm's ecosystem. He grabbed the nearest support rods and began reinforcing the structures, tying them with durable cables. The women moved alongside him, their enormous hands adjusting other parts of the greenhouse, but Marcus noticed that they were limited by size. They could only move so fast without damaging the fragile plants. "I can help more than you think," Marcus muttered to himself. He scanned the field, spotting the irrigation network that spread across the land. Some of the tubes had started to tear under the strong wind. In a moment of inspiration, he remembered a trick from Earth, using water pressure to redirect flow temporarily while securing broken pipes. He shouted instructions to the drones. "You, position the connectors. You, push the water to the east section." The drones hesitated for a second, confused by his unconventional commands, but Marcus adjusted his gestures and mimicked the rhythm of the farm. Slowly, they followed his lead. Water began to flow to where it was most needed, and Marcus reinforced weak points before the wind could worsen the damage. The storm was relentless. Lightning arced down to the soil, striking in patterns that made no sense, and gusts of wind threatened to topple everything Marcus and the women had worked for. The women were powerful, but even they struggled against the erratic chaos of nature. Marcus realized something crucial. Their methods relied on predictability. They moved in perfect, efficient patterns, but when the storm became unpredictable, their strategies faltered. Marcus smiled faintly under the rain. Humans thrived on improvisation. He didn't have their size or speed, but he had something else: adaptability. He ran to a section of crops that was particularly vulnerable, noticing that the plants were bending dangerously in the wind. Using rope and stakes, he created a temporary lattice, guiding the plants to bend safely rather than breaking. One of the creatures from the soil, the small, luminescent caretakers, crawled toward him. Marcus gently guided it into the lattice, and it began helping him stabilize the plants. The women watched silently, their eyes widening slightly. They had expected strength, precision, and technique, but they had not expected intuition and rapid improvisation. Marcus was doing what they could not, thinking in ways that were unpredictable yet effective. Hours passed. The storm intensified, and the farm seemed on the brink of collapse. Marcus coordinated the drones, reinforced structures, and guided the plants. Sweat mixed with rain, and his muscles ached, but he did not stop. Every action, every decision was a calculation. Humans had a way of finding solutions in chaos, and Marcus was living proof. At one point, a section of the drone network began to fail. The drones hovered erratically, unsure of how to respond to the storm's sudden gusts. Marcus ran toward them, waving his hands and shouting instructions, then remembered the farm's rhythm. He mimicked the gentle swaying motion of the plants and the vibration of the luminescent creatures. The drones, strangely, responded. They adjusted their positions, moved water to critical areas, and reinforced fragile structures. The women exchanged glances. "He is learning faster than we expected," said the first woman. Marcus did not hear her. His focus was total. He moved from task to task, solving problems as they appeared. He realized that while the women were brilliant, they relied on the farm being predictable. Humans, on the other hand, could improvise, could see solutions in chaos, could persist when logic said failure was inevitable. By late afternoon, the storm began to weaken, though its remnants still lashed at the fields. Marcus and the women worked together to repair the worst of the damage. Broken irrigation tubes were replaced, overturned plants stood upright again, and the drones hummed back to life. The storm's fury had tested them all, but Marcus had proved something important. Humans could thrive in unpredictability. Finally, as the sun set behind the dissipating clouds, the farm looked whole again. Marcus leaned against a sturdy greenhouse frame, soaked to the bone and utterly exhausted. The women approached him, their expressions calm but full of respect. "You have done well," said the second woman. "Not because you are strong, but because you are human. You think differently, you adapt, you persist. This is why humans can survive where others fail." Marcus smiled faintly. He felt a sense of pride unlike anything he had experienced. For the first time, he realized he was not just an intruder on this farm, he was part of it. His mind, his intuition, and his stubbornness had mattered. He had contributed in a way the women could not have predicted. The first woman placed a hand on his shoulder, careful not to crush him with her sighs. "Tomorrow we will teach you more," she said. "But today, you have learned the greatest lesson. You do not have to be the biggest or the fastest. You only need to be human." Marcus nodded. He had understood, finally, what they had meant by sharing sleep, work, and life on the farm. It was not just about following orders, it was about participating, observing, and contributing in ways that required intelligence, patience, and creativity. As night fell, Marcus prepared for rest, his body aching and his mind buzzing with the day's events. The storm had been terrifying, but it had also revealed something extraordinary. Humans could shine in chaos. They could find solutions no one else expected. And in that moment, Marcus realized the HFY truth. Humanity was not weak. It was unpredictable, adaptable, and brilliant in its own way. He sat on the porch, looking out at the glowing farm, the drones and the luminescent creatures returning to their work. The three women stood nearby, their giant forms calm and steady under the twin moons. Marcus felt small, yes, but he was no longer powerless. He had proven himself. He had survived. He had contributed. The storm had been a test, and humans had passed not by strength, but by creativity and determination. Marcus smiled, feeling a new confidence rising within him. Tomorrow, the farm would offer new challenges. But now he knew he could face them. He had learned the rhythm, he had earned respect, and he had discovered the spark of human ingenuity that even giants could admire. Sleep finally came and Marcus drifted off, dreaming not of the storm but of solutions, possibilities, and the strange, beautiful farm that was becoming his home. The morning after the storm, Marcus woke to a farm that was alive in a way he had never felt before. The soil glistened with rainwater, the luminescent creatures moved quietly through the fields, and the drones hovered above, performing their tasks with precise timing. The women were already at work, their enormous forms moving gracefully through the fields. But today, something was different. They were not just working, they were watching him. Marcus stretched and stepped outside, still damp from the night's lingering rain. The air smelled sweet and earthy, a mix of soil, water, and the strange alien plants that thrived here. He noticed the way the crops bent toward the sunlight, how the creatures seemed to move in perfect harmony, and how the drones followed paths he had never imagined. It was as if the farm itself recognized the storm had passed, that life had endured, and that a new rhythm had begun. The first woman approached him, her eyes calm but sharp. "Today, you will take the lead," she said. "You have learned to follow the rhythm, to adapt, to think. Now it is time to show us what humans can do when they create solutions of their own." Marcus's heart leapt. After all the mistakes, the lessons, and the challenges, today he had a chance to prove himself fully. He nodded, swallowing the nervous excitement in his chest. The women led him to the central field, the largest area of the farm, where the most delicate and valuable crops grew. A sudden gust of wind rustled through the tall plants, and Marcus realized the storm had left some weak spots. The first task was clear: protect the crops before they could be damaged. Marcus walked through the rows of plants, observing the land, the creatures, and the drones. His mind raced with ideas. He remembered the lessons he had learned: how to reinforce fragile plants, how to guide the creatures, how to direct the drones with gestures and rhythm. But today, he would not just follow instructions, he would improvise. He began with a simple system, using ropes and stakes to protect the crops from wind, combining the natural movement of the plants with careful guidance. He adjusted the irrigation tubes to redistribute water efficiently, ensuring that no area was over or underwatered. The luminescent creatures responded to his gentle guidance, moving to areas that needed care. The drones followed his hand signals and voice commands, their artificial intelligence complementing his human intuition. The women watched silently, their enormous eyes following every move. Marcus could feel their curiosity and judgment, but he did not falter. He moved with confidence, blending observation, logic, and creativity. By mid-morning, the central field was not only safe, it was optimized. The crops seemed healthier, more vibrant, and the farm hummed with activity in a perfect, balanced rhythm. "Good," said the second woman. "You are seeing possibilities we cannot." Marcus smiled faintly. "It's not perfect," he said, "but it works with the flow, not against it." The storm had taught him that efficiency was not only about strength or speed. It was about adaptation, about noticing the smallest details, about persistence and creativity. Humans were not giants. They could not move faster, taller, or stronger, but they could think differently. And today, Marcus intended to prove that. The next challenge came in the form of a strange problem. Some of the crops were not responding to the usual sunlight. Their leaves drooped, their stems bent oddly, and even the drones seemed unsure how to adjust. The women looked to Marcus, and he understood immediately. They wanted him to solve it. He knelt down, observing the plants carefully. Their stems were weak because the sunlight was refracted unusually by the twin moons, creating inconsistent shadows across the field. Marcus scratched his head, thinking. Then, inspiration struck. He gathered reflective panels from the storage shed, adjusting them at different angles to redirect sunlight to the plants. He carefully moved the drones to maintain optimal positions for watering while the plants received the redirected light. The luminescent creatures moved instinctively under his guidance, distributing nutrients where they were most needed. Marcus held his breath as the plants slowly began to straighten, their leaves turning toward the new light. By mid-afternoon, the problem was solved. The crops were thriving again, and the women exchanged impressed glances. "You see, human," said the third woman, "your creativity is remarkable. You do not rely solely on rules. You improvise, you adapt, you solve." Marcus felt a surge of pride. He had finally understood what the women meant when they said humans had a spark others lacked. Strength and speed could accomplish many things, but unpredictability, ingenuity, and persistence could achieve what no one expected. The day continued with more challenges. Marcus reorganized the drone network, adjusted irrigation in unpredictable areas, and worked alongside the luminescent creatures to optimize the farm's ecosystem. Each success built confidence, not only in him but also in the women. Their calm, serene expressions slowly gave way to subtle smiles. They were beginning to respect him, not as a weak human, but as a contributor, an innovator, and a part of the farm's living rhythm. By evening, the work was complete. Marcus stood in the central field, exhausted but exhilarated. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange, pink, and violet. The farm glowed faintly with the light of the luminescent creatures, and the drones hovered quietly, their tasks done for the day. The women approached him. For the first time, their expressions were relaxed, almost warm. "You have proven yourself," said the first woman, "not by strength, not by size, not by force, but by thought, adaptation, and persistence. This farm, now, you belong here." Marcus's heart swelled. He had feared the farm, feared the women, and feared failing. Yet here he was, standing among them, fully accepted. The farm was alive, not because of one being, but because of collaboration, creativity, and harmony. Humans, he realized, had a special place in this balance. The second woman smiled. "You will sleep with us tonight, not in the way you feared, but in harmony with the farm's rhythm. You will eat, rest, and share your dreams. You are now part of the cycle." Marcus laughed softly, relief flooding him. He understood now. Sleep with them meant to live as part of the farm, to share its life, to be fully present in its ecosystem. It was an honor, not a command. That night, Marcus lay down under a small canopy, surrounded by the soft glow of luminescent creatures. The women settled nearby, their enormous forms gentle and non-threatening. For the first time, he felt completely at peace. The farm, the creatures, the drones, and the women had all accepted him. He was not just a human visitor or a weak intruder. He was a participant, a creator, and a problem solver. He thought of the storm, of the challenges, and of every mistake he had made. Each had been a lesson. Each had been an opportunity to discover the human spark. Humans were small, yes, but in unpredictability, in chaos, in challenges that no one else could solve, they could shine brighter than anyone expected. The women spoke softly as he drifted to sleep, sharing stories of the farm's history, of the strange creatures, and of the rhythm of life on this planet. Marcus listened, understanding not only their words but the deeper meaning. Life, work, and harmony were connected. Humans, with their ingenuity and persistence, had a role to play here. When he finally closed his eyes, Marcus felt a sense of belonging he had never known. He was part of something larger than himself. The farm had tested him, taught him, and accepted him. And in doing so, it had revealed the most important truth. Humans, though small, were capable of brilliance when given the chance to think, create, and the night passed peacefully, the twin moons casting gentle light across the thriving fields. Marcus slept deeply, dreaming of solutions, possibilities, and the strange, beautiful life he had become a part of. When morning came, the farm was alive and ready again. Marcus rose with energy and determination. Today, he would continue to learn, create, and grow. But he knew, deep in his heart, that he had already proven himself. The women respected him, the farm relied on him, and he, in turn, had discovered the extraordinary power of human ingenuity. The storm had passed, the challenges had been met, and in the rhythm of this living farm, Marcus had found his place. Among giants, among creatures, among life itself, humans were small. Humans were underestimated. But in a world of unpredictability, creativity, and persistence, humans could thrive, humans could shine, humans could be extraordinary. And Marcus finally understood what it truly meant to belong.